All right, we're joined at another Bull in the Basement by the voice of the Bills and a Western New York broadcast legend. Is that okay? You all right with that?
Yeah, makes me sound old. I'm happy to be in your basement too, by the way.
Awesome.
It's a
Murph in the
lovely
basement with Bull in the Basement. Thanks, Murph. Yeah. It makes for a really good podcast studio. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right. John Murphy out with us. And Murph was a guy who sort of mentored me for a long time as Bills radio and tolerated me on road trips when he and I would go to dinner because he couldn't find anybody else to go to dinner with. So I miss those dinners a lot. They were so much fun. But we're going to delve into you, in addition to obviously to the Bills, and on Bull in the Basement all week long. Every day is going to be a different podcast, all Bills related. And so let's get right into Murph. You, as a child with brothers, terrorized Lockport, New York. Am I right?
My brothers did. I didn't. I was a good kid.
Of course not. Of course you didn't.
No.
What is it about? What's special about Lockport? Because we did a thing when I was doing radio, maybe about a year, maybe it was 2 years ago, when I think we learned that Lockport, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know this or not, was the birthplace of volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah. The guy who invented volleyball grew up in Lockport. Yeah. That's not the most special thing about Lockport, but no, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah. I've never been asked. You know what? I appreciate about Lockport, and I guess I've known this for decades, is it's in the Buffalo metropolitan area, but it always has felt like, and it considers itself a little bit separate from Buffalo. It's a separate city, with a separate kind of vibe. And when I was a little kid, before interstate highways, and well, there were interstate highways, but before there was so much travel, it was a big deal to go, quote, up to Buffalo. And now people shoot back and forth. I mean, I commuted Lockport to Buffalo for years, but back then nobody really commuted. Lockport was its own place with its own kind of vibe. And I think that's lessened a little bit, but still, it has kind of a different feel. It's not just a suburb, it's not a bedroom community at all, I don't think.
Yeah, no. And so when you did make that commute, though, you went via the Erie Canal, right?
No, I went on. There were interstates, 990 to 290 to 190. Yeah,
But that is what
I used to swim in the canal, though. I used to dive off the canal bridges and swim in the filthy canal.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it's not healthy. I wouldn't recommend it. There was a cool dive off a bridge, probably 30 or 40 feet into the water.
Yeah, that's something I've never done and won't, because I'm not a good swimmer and I hate heights. So.
Yeah, and the water's really not real clean. I would not, and you don't really know that you can't see the bottom, so you know how deep it is, but you don't know what's under there. There's going to be a car or a body or an animal carcass. I'm serious. People dump stuff in the canal all the time.
Tragic. That is tragic. Did you ever, when it froze in the wintertime, did you guys ever skate on it?
No,
I
never remember that. No, we used to toboggan and sled in this hill right next to the canal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were not careful, you would shoot off a ledge, into the canal. But no, I mean, it froze, but they would drain it. So when it froze, it was only, I'm guessing now, 6 or 8 feet deep, in the summer. And now, this time of year, it's probably 20 feet deep. So no, I didn't trust it that much, to tell you the truth, to skate on it.
Yeah. So let's start, how and when you first knew or thought that you would do what you have done all your life for a living.
Yeah. I mean, I was always interested in broadcasting, and I went to Syracuse University and got a degree in broadcast journalism and started out doing news and thought I would do news, actually. And I was working, when I got out of school, I got jobs at a couple of radio stations in Niagara County, one at WJJL in Niagara Falls doing afternoon news. Got paid $75 a week and a tank of gas for my Toyota Corolla, which got me back and forth. And I also got a job on weekends then at WLVL Radio in Lockport doing news. And then a full-time position opened up at LVL, and I switched over there and doing news. But LVL also had a pretty ambitious, they still do, I think, a pretty ambitious high school sports program, and by program, I mean a schedule of games, football and basketball. And, there was openings, and it was, I would start doing high school football for Niagara Orleans League and DeSales Catholic High School back then, and then doing basketball, same Niagara Orleans League and DeSales games, and really enjoyed it. And then I went to BEN as a news person, WBEN radio in 1981, I want to say. And they were carrying the Bills. They were the voice of the Bills, and they needed someone to help with the pregame show, producing the pregame show. So I started doing that and kind of fell into it. You probably don't recall, some of your listeners might, the late Stan Barron, who was a member of the Buffalo Broadcast Hall of Fame. And he, I did news on his show, and he got sick in 1984, really sick. And the week before the opener, I guess, ironically enough, this week, they came to me and said, "Hey, Stan's sick and he can't do it. And we need someone to work with Van on the broadcast, and you're it." And I was like, I'm not ready to do that, but it didn't matter. I had to do it anyway. And it was great. And Van was welcoming, and she kind of showed me the ropes, and the rest, as they say, is history. 1984, long time ago.
Trial by fire.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
So
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was basically following Van's lead, and it was great. He was a great teacher.
For sure. So from there, obviously, most people that are seeing this that aren't from Buffalo don't know that you were a TV anchor for a very long time doing sports as well. So you you never did TV news, right? I mean, unless it was in a sort of a fill-in role, you always were the sports TV
sports.
anchor.
Yeah. I started in '89 at Channel 7, the ABC affiliate here. Started there part-time and then became full-time and stayed there until 2003. No, longer than that. 2007. I don't know. I can't remember. But then I went to work at WIVB Channel 4, the CBS affiliate, for 4.5 years, and left there in 2012. So I was in TV for a long time, 20 plus years, I think. Right?
Yeah.
It's about 20 plus years.
What's your highlight from your TV career that you most remember?
Wow. I mean, went to and covered all 4 Super Bowls.
Sure.
That was a highlight, to go to all 4 Super Bowls. It was a lot of work. I mean, you didn't sleep in those Super Bowls, and we certainly weren't there to party and but we were there, Tampa.
Like some football players that might have, excuse me, did I say that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember the first one in Tampa, it was nuts because there was only a week between the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, so we were all rushed.
Yeah.
In fact, I took a charter flight that the NFL had set up for media the night of the AFC Championship game. That I went home, packed a bag, and the flight left about 8 o'clock from Buffalo to Tampa direct. But we hit the ground running. I slept for a couple hours and got up and went to work that Monday morning. We had a week to get ready for the game. So and then the next year, Minnesota. And that was, again, a lot of work. I was there too long. For some reason, we couldn't get flights in or out conveniently. So, I was in Minnesota for at least a week and a half or longer, doing pregame stuff. It was ridiculous. And then to Los Angeles, which actually was maybe the most fun because of the time difference. We were done with work at 8:30 at night, LA time. And prior to that, we had to work right up to 11:30. So that was fun. And then, of course, the final one in Atlanta. By then, we had it down. We were in Atlanta. We had the routine down. But that was a lot of work, and maybe the most memorable thing. The other thing we did, I worked with a great producer. I don't know if you know Tim Milligan, the South Buffalo native, who's been at CNN for 20 plus years now. And he was a huge hockey fan and a great hockey guy. And it was 1990. It had to be the Sabres' 20th anniversary. And we independently kind of produced and aired this history of the Sabres, 20 years of the Sabres piece, which is really good. And we used a lot of archival video, and nobody seemed to care we were using it. But more than that, we interviewed all the major players. I mean, we interviewed Gilbert Perreault and all the major players and coaches, and really got into the nitty gritty of Sabres history in those first 20 years, including their playoff successes. I mean, it's hard to think of the Sabres in that sense now, but they were good, and were good pretty quickly in 74 and 75 and the Stanley Cup Finals in 75. The tragic death of Tim Horton, which happened in the first 4 or 5 years, and all of that stuff. And I'll never forget, we spent a long time interviewing Mike Robitaille, the great former Sabres broadcaster and defenseman. And, Tim Horton died in 73, I want to say. And here we are, 16 years later, and Robitaille, as emotional as he could get, was literally weeping in the interview about the death of Tim Horton. I mean, it was just really good stuff like that. I was really proud of it. I have it somewhere here in this office. I don't know where it is, on VHS tape. But there were a lot of moments like that. I mean, I wish there were more, but there were a lot of moments we did stuff. And, you always you had to wrangle more time out of the producers. Like, oh, well, we'll have to cut weather by 30 seconds. I was like, yeah. So, but I mean, you had to wrangle more time to do a long piece like that. It was like a 3.5, 4 minute piece, which is an eternity in local TV news.
Yep.
But we did 5 nights of 3.5, 4 minutes, and it was a lot of time to devote to sports back then, or even more so now. But it was really fun and really good. But there were a lot of things like that we did. I wish there were more, but those are the most memorable, I think.
Well, come on, let's be honest. Your most memorable was what is responsible for you getting your SAG card. Am I right?
Yeah, but that wasn't on the air. That was Bruce Almighty.
Right.
And I got the call. I was working at training camp. It was the summer of 2002, maybe, working in Rochester at training camp. And John DeShulo, who was operations manager at Channel 7, called me and said, hey, that movie they're shooting, they'd like you to do one line. And I was like, really? So I had to drive home to Orchard Park from Fisher, get dressed, go into the studio at 7:30 and do one line, and the line was, oh, the Sabres lost again last night. I did it like 300 times on video, and they packed it up and sent it, and it wound up in the movie. Yeah, it was great. One of the funny things was, I don't know why they needed me to do that, right? They had all kinds of actors playing news reporters and anchors and weathermen, and why didn't they just get some slappy, guy who could pose as a sportscaster? I don't know, but they wanted me to do it to lend it an air of authenticity, I guess. But everybody else at Channel 7, and they shall remain nameless, but most of the anchors most of them were like, well, wait a minute, why can't I be in the movie? So surreptitiously, they all arranged for themselves to shoot a line in the studio at Channel 7, and they quietly sent it out to the producers and said, well, hey, here's a line you could use. And none of them made the final cut, just my line, which was pretty funny, I thought.
That's really awesome.
It was a feel-good hit of 2003, I think. It was a pretty big movie.
Absolutely. And you're still probably getting those royalty checks for 28 cents.
I have yet to receive a dime. Seriously. Unbeknownst to me, Channel 7 rolled me into their promotional considerations budget. And so they wrote a big check. I believe the producers wrote a big check to Channel 7, and I never saw a dime. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sounds like a lawsuit, right? Pending lawsuit.
Right. I'm going to go back to school and be your agent now.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, I mean, Murph, you're one of 32 guys in the world that do what you do. I mean, do you still pinch yourself thinking, holy, I'm not going to fill in that blank, but, I'm doing, and you've been doing it a long time, obviously, but to consider yourself one of those 32 and just such an exclusive fraternity, even today, after how many incredible years you've had doing it, do you still stop and take a step back, maybe at the beginning of every year, say, wow, I cannot believe I'm doing this. And especially with the Bills now at their high level of play, how exciting it's got to be for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't dwell on it, but I'll be honest. I mean, I spent the morning today, and I've got to go back and do it when we're finished talking, doing the boards, the spotting boards for Sunday's matchup with the Steelers. And, it's a little bit of grunt work, but it's good for me. It helps me learn names and numbers. But while I'm doing it, I thought to myself, well, here I am again, the 18th year I'm going to do play-by-play, and this is pretty cool. And, there are times during the off season when you wonder, are they going to want me back? Am I going to do it again? I'm going to have the same deal? Are we going to, this year it was travel was a big issue. And there I am down there getting ready for the 18th season of play-by-play. Yeah. In that sense, it is very cool. And, weeks ago, I was in, I'm looking at something here, but I was in Chicago doing the Bills and the Bears on a Saturday afternoon. And I got talking to a guy who I've known a little bit, and he's the play-by-play voice. And this is what I'm looking up. Boy, I always forget his name. Play-by-play voice of the Bears. He's about my age, a little bit younger than me. But shoot, how can I never remember his name? At any rate, we're talking before the game, and he said, we got a pretty good group here, don't we? I said, what are you talking about? He said, the group of us, and we talk. I talked to Matt Horde or Dan Horde in Cincinnati a lot, and he does the Bengals play-by-play. I talked to Bob Sochi, who does the Patriots play-by-play. Great guys from Auburn, New York, right down the road. Horde, by the way, Dan Horde is from Jamestown, the other end of the I-90. Jimmy Cephalo, former Dolphin, former Penn State standout, great guy. I talk to him, occasionally. There's a lot of good guys who do this, and we all kind of keep tabs on each other. And yeah, in that sense, it is pretty cool. And it's a small fraternity. I'll never forget at the combine in Indy, we were standing around just talking, nothing formal, but I was talking to a couple of guys, Horde and a couple others, and we were complaining about something, but complaining about Twitter. And it was like, do you get critiqued on Twitter? Oh yeah, Jeff Joniak is, I don't know why I forgot his name, Bears play-by-play. Oh yeah, we all get critiqued on Twitter. People don't like it. And I said, well, you can definitely mute people on Twitter. And Joniak and Dan Hart are like, what? And I taught them how to mute anything you want on Twitter, so you never see it. I said, and the guy, whoever's tweeting this, you won't read another tweet that he posts, and he doesn't know that he's been muted. It's amazing. And they're like, wow. And so we all kind of joke about that now. But it's, we share tips like that. Like, here's how you get away from unnecessary, because people, and you can appreciate this, Cole, you did this for a couple of years. When the team's good, as the great Van Miller used to say, when the team's good, Murph, you used to say it like this, Murph, when the team's good, we're the best announcers in the world. And when they're not good, the announcers suck too. And that is the point, I guess, of muting and getting rid of Twitter tweets that you don't like. It's like, well, whatever. You're not happy, turn the station, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to respond at all. You just hit mute and they're gone. And they never know it. At any rate, the point is we connect, me and there's probably 10 or 12 play-by-play guys. Joniak in Chicago is a great one, and Dan Horde and Sochi and I talk a lot. Just really good guys. I'm looking forward, for instance, this weekend, Steelers are coming up, and Bill Hillgrove is an institution in Pittsburgh. He's been doing it forever. His partner is Craig Wolfley, who grew up right here in Orchard Park, went to high school with my wife in Orchard Park, as a matter of fact. But they just lost their longtime guy, Tunch Ilkin, last week, who passed away at ALS. Did not do it last year, but Tunch and Wolfley were standouts on the Steelers broadcast. And I thought this morning, when I see those guys, Hillgrove and Wolfley, I got to make sure I express, my sorrow, my feeling for them, because I really feel like they probably feel bad that Ilkin is gone. He was a great guy and a great broadcast too.
For sure. So you mentioned Van. Let's talk a little bit about Van and working with him. And anybody that has worked with Van has stories, but you maybe have more than most. So clean for this segment. I try and keep Bull in the Basement as clean as I can get. But
the basement clean, I'll give you that.
Thank you. I don't. Anyway. And it's not because we're prudish, it's because we like to be professional on this basement broadcast. Anyway, if you can, share a story or two about Van, funny, informative, and how he influenced you.
Yeah, people ask me that a lot, maybe less now than they did a couple of years ago. Because Van's been gone for a while, right? Yeah. This is the 18th season I've done play-by-play, and Van passed away, I'm going to guess 5 or 6 years ago now. But, Van showed me how to do it, but he never sat me down and said, okay, here's how you do it, Murph. Here's how you do this. Never did that. But if you paid attention and watched his example, it was a great place to learn, And the most important thing I got from Van, and it was again by example, was his enthusiasm for the game, his energy level. He would say all the time, we only get 16 of these games, Murph. And he's right. It's not like hockey and I think I do a good Van, by the way, still.
You do a very good Van.
Yeah, but people don't remember Van as much anymore. So the impression is lost. That's why I've done it a couple of times for you. But you're right. He's right. You only get 16 chances to do a good job. And he would get up for each one of them, and he's like, every game means a lot. And he does. It's the NFL. That's why people love the NFL as much as they do. And that's what I got from Van was not like, oh, keep your energy up, but to make sure that you're plugged into the game. You got to be plugged into the game. You got to be energetic and enthusiastic, and not to the cheerleading point, but at least enthusiastic about each and every play. And that's the most important thing, I guess, I got from Van. Van was hilarious, obviously. And, we were in Cincinnati once, late 80s, doing a game, and they assigned us a spotter who's a guy who, works with our depth chart and points to players who make tackles and helps the play-by-play guy, just an extra set of eyes for identifying. And the guy walks in 10 minutes before kickoff, and he's got sunglasses on. And Dan's like, okay, and nice to meet you. And we started playing the game, and the guy was a mess. He wasn't any help at all. So the first commercial break, Van goes, hey, what's the deal? You're not really saying things, son. The guy takes off his sunglasses, and he had a patch over one eye. We had a one-eyed spotter. And the guy's like, oh, I just had this procedure the other day. And Van's like, well, you got one eye? And the guy said, yeah, I only have one eye, and I'm kind of seeing double here. And Van goes, well, geez, I don't know. Look at the number and divide by 2. I don't know what you should do. I mean, he was so quick and so witty. I mean, it would just blow you away how funny he could be. And he was all the time, and always, as far as the job, always full of energy and enthusiasm. Just not because he obviously loved the Bills and loved seeing them do well, but mostly because he knew, you only get 16 chances to do this a year, and when you don't make the playoffs for 17 years, it literally is only 16 chances. Now, hopefully we get a few more.
And I'm going to expand on that point for you, because what a last couple of years it's been for you being the play-by-play voice of the Bills, and just their ascent since basically, I mean, let's face it, there was BJ and AJ in terms of Josh, right? Before Josh and after Josh, or current Josh, if you wish. But man, since he's come on board, and of course, obviously the front office and coaching staff, this team and franchise has been incredibly different. I want to get to that in a second, but you mentioned,
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, please.
I look at it as BM and AM. That's McDermott, because he really changed everything, right? They made the playoffs without Josh in Sean McDermott's first year.
That's true.
So go ahead.
No, that's fine. And I want to ask you about Tyrod a little bit later in our conversation here. But I want to go back to what you do on Sundays, right? So you have people around, and Van was famous for always at the end of the game, giving mention to his spotters. And I know your sons have spotted for you for years. And is one of them still spotting for you? Mark will still spot? Awesome.
32. Yeah, he's done it since he was like 16 years old.
So for people that don't, and what does he get? Like, what do you get him? Is it like allowance? Do you give him an allowance for being your spotter? Like, how does that work?
I give him a firm handshake. Mark is a practicing attorney these days in Niagara Falls, and he loves doing it. He says he does, I mean, it's a time commitment, but he loves, and you know what it's like in there. When you're doing those games, it's a level of involvement that even fans in the stands can't get to, like I always look at his concentric circles, and the players are in the middle, and the next circle is coaches, and to our right is the GM and those people, and they're pretty involved and they have a stake in it. And the next circle is us broadcasters, because we are locked in every play, and locked into what's going on. We're trying to give it perspective and talk about the big picture, but every play matters. I'll never forget, I think it was Mark Murphy's first game, and he's 33 years old now. First game, and he was just kind of learning, and he's watching, and he's, it's demanding the first time, especially. We get to the first timeout, first commercial break, and he goes, wow, I really got to pay attention, don't I? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the job. That's the job, is paying attention. But he's great. My other home spotter is a lifelong friend of mine, Mike Mullane, who played college football at Colgate, and he does a good job. He's great. And the important thing, one of the important things is, and Mark had to kind of develop this, they can't react too emotionally. Now, both of them will, but they've got to do it quietly, because you don't want the guy next to you saying, yeah, when they don't have a microphone. And I've heard broadcasts where people do that, but they're both pretty good about that. My son, Jack, Mark spent 4 years away in college at Lemoyne and Syracuse. Jack, again, 16, 17, was the spotter. And he's different than his older brother. And Jack, totally unemotional. Bills lose, Bills win. He puts his coat on and walks out the door. And he likes the Bills. He's going Sunday to the Steelers game, but he does not react emotionally. He was there to do a job, and he did his job, and he walked out when it was over. It was kind of funny. Mark, my son, when he first started doing it, and he still does to a certain extent, the Bills quarterback could throw an interception, and Mark would bury his head in his hands, or turn his back to the field. And you're kind of like, there's another play coming up for Mark. You got to pay attention,
Well,
it's fun.
Listen, from my experience being in the booth with you guys, I mean, I've watched you probably slam your fist on the counter there. I've watched Kelso go berserk. Yeah. Well, not doing it on the mic, but pounding the thing, and just and Van used to, don't make me come down there and tell coach to fill in the blank. to do things differently. You guys, you get emotional, but yeah, like you said, you have to be objective to a certain point, obviously. And then you continue to do what you do. But back to spotting, I asked you to get to one of your charts. So most people probably are not aware. Maybe some of the harder core fans are aware that play-by-play, all of you, right? I mean, it's an industry thing, I would submit, have a chart that you have in front of you that your spotters will point to on every particular play, right? And you direct them to point at whoever, right? So on a defensive play, they'll point at whoever the tackler is. On an offensive play, it might be who the person was making the reception. Or explain that for people that don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a memory tool. And I make these up. This is last year's. I'm currently making up this year's Bills and then Steelers, but offense on one side, defense on the other. And I tell the spotters, kind of instruct the spotters to, somebody makes a tackle or a play, you point underneath his name so you can't point on top of it so you can't see. And it's just an extra set of eyes. Yep. One story, and I think it's at the point now where it's a iconic play in Bill's history, the 101-yard interception return for a touchdown by this guy, Taron Johnson, against Baltimore last year and in the playoffs. And things happen quickly, and interceptions are tough because boom, the play, the possession changes in an instant, and you got to kind of switch gears. I find, for me anyway, it's a little more difficult to change gears. Like you're looking at Baltimore's offense and the Bills' defense, and all of a sudden, boom, the ball's in somebody else's hands. So that happens in the end zone, and I kind of knew it was Taron Johnson, but I waited. It seemed like 10 minutes, but I waited 1.5 seconds, and Mark Murphy is banging on the board, and I just glanced down and saw that he was pointing at Taron Johnson, so I went ahead and said Taron Johnson. And it turned into it was a great play. It was an amazing play. It turned into a decent call, but I credit the spotter because Mark knew I was looking, and Mark knew I knew it was Taron Johnson, but I don't want to be wrong. I don't think you want to be wrong,
Right.
It's like I tried to, the officiating drives me nuts. You try to wait till you see the touchdown signal before you take touchdown. The last thing you want, you're in your car driving down the thruway and I say touchdown. You're like, yeah. Oh, wait, no, it's not a touchdown. I mean, that's not what you want. So I wait for the officials. Sometimes they take forever. You'll see them. They look down at their partner down the sideline to make sure the guy didn't step out of bounds. They've waited seconds, 5 seconds, sometimes to signal touchdown. It drives me nuts. So I'm always try to be careful not to say touchdown before it's a touchdown, or make a misidentification of a player. And doing it 18 years play-by-play, you kind of learn how you fudge for a little bit, intercepted in the end zone, and marks. Then I said Taron Johnson, so, but that's how important they are. They're an extra set of eyes. I mean, Mike Mullane, Mark spots the Bills, and Mike Mullane at home spots the opponents. And when we get to the AFC East teams, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Jets, you play them twice a year. You play them every year, twice a year. I know them almost as well as I know the Bills. So Mike Mullane is like, you don't even need me here today because you just know the other team. I mean, I know the Bills, names and numbers pretty well. And it's not like, I'll make this up, and I like, it looks non-professional, doesn't it? It's a mess, right? I mean, this is not marked up. I think I just use this for the 1 playoff or 2 playoff games, 3 playoff games. But I like to do it myself. Guys, you can get them made. There are professionals and, people. Eric Wood gets a professional spotting board member to make him a smaller, more compact spotting board. But I find I memorize stuff better. Kelso used to analyze. Kelso, the former teacher, said, well, you're a visual learner, right? I said, okay. But it's by the time, like, as I do the charts today, the spotting boards today, I know the Bills, but by the time I finish the Steelers board tonight, I'll have a pretty good handle just from writing them down, looking up name, number, putting in a couple of biographical facts. That's how I learn, I guess. And I like to do it. I look, and that's the other thing about, you asked the earlier question about you pinch yourself because you're one of 32. Well, the one thing that I thought of today was I really like this. I'm glad I'm doing it again because I love the games and the excitement of a game on Sunday, but I even like the process, getting ready. It's a weird thing. I'm one of those weird kids who like going to school, and I love the process of getting ready to do a game.
Yeah, I mean, when I did it, I loved researching and just finding things that you didn't know about and being able to drop those little tidbits in here and there. Absolutely, no doubt. I want to ask you about, and you mentioned the excitement of the game. Obviously, it's going to be a sold-out stadium, which is awesome. So we're back to that, at least hopefully for the time being and hopefully forever. I'm curious your thoughts. Do you think the crowd, it seems like an obvious answer, but I know I've talked to enough people who say that maybe it was better, shockingly, and I don't think you will agree with this, that there weren't fans in stands a year ago, and that the Bills and Josh in particular might have been better because it felt more like a practice setting than an actual game. What I guess my question is, full stadium, crazy crowd. How does that, is that, obviously it's better for the Bills in terms of affecting the other team, right? But
Yeah.
in terms of the Bills themselves, how does that affect them playing again back in front of a full house?
Yeah. I've heard that argument being made, and I'm not here to say it's false, but first of all, I don't know how you would ever measure that. But I will say there were games last year, home games. I mean, we broadcast all the games from Orchard Park, from our broadcast studio at the now Highmark Stadium. But there were the home games last year, a couple of them, the Rams, Patriots later in the year, where I walked out thinking, man, I wish there would have been fans here. They would have loved this game. And that's the emotional part, and the energy that the fans bring, I think, is an important part of Buffalo Bills football, probably all of NFL football, but especially Buffalo Bills football. The love that the fans have for that team. I mean, I laid awake last night thinking about the buzz that'll be in the air. You know, an hour before kickoff, the place will be buzzing. You know, and that's an important part of Buffalo Bills football. That buzz, that noise, that kind of general excitement. And we were without it last year. There were a couple games when fans would have loved what the Bills were doing, and I think that was missed last year. Will it hurt them? Or I don't think it'll hurt Bills players to have fans there. I mean, yeah, it'll be noisy. They may be somewhat disruptive, but man, I don't think it'll hurt them. I really don't. I think they can only help, and the help they provide, I think, outweighs whatever negative measurement there might be. But I don't know how you would even measure that noise. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the fan base, by the way, and listen, you've been a Bills fan and you've worked with the Bills obviously for years and years and years, might be stronger than it's ever been through virtually, social media, Bills Mafia, all of that. And you see, it is mind blowing to me how much money is spent on Bills gear. I mean, there's I don't know how many t-shirt companies that create all of these different Bills t-shirts that are, themed for different things, whatever, and people buy them up like crazy. Just the merch that the Bills fan base have purchased over the past couple of years with their ascension, obviously in the league, has been remarkable. Then you saw what they did at the airport last year. I mean, this fan base is blowing up to epic, maybe the biggest proportion all time, right?
Yeah, I think so. And people have asked me recently, is this what it was like during the 90s? And to me, the answer is no. It's kind of bigger now. And I think social media has a lot to do with it. I think the interest and the excitement of the fans is, I mean, people were pumped when they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, but this seems bigger to me for some reason. And I worry about, look, I don't think the Bills are going to win every game this year. There's going to be some bumps in the road. I think they're going to win most of them, a lot of them, but I hope the fans don't ride a roller coaster, which they do quite often here. And the roller coaster, there was a time in recent memory where they were down for so long that it never felt like they were going to get out of it. Now they're out of it, and they're really good. And I'm glad the fans appreciate it, but you got to almost keep your emotions in check. And here's the thing that I think is lost on fans, not just Buffalo fans, but look, the NFL is really, really competitive. I mean, it's really competitive. Teams get better. And, I watched the game last September, the Browns and the Bengals last September, and the Bills were playing well. But I'm watching Joe Burrow for the Bengals and Baker Mayfield of the Browns, and I'm thinking, this is last September. I'm thinking, man, if the Bills are going to win a Super Bowl, they better hurry, because these guys are coming, and they're all coming, right? They're all coming. And people come after you every week and every season. Teams get better. Nobody coasts through the NFL season. It's really competitive. It's really evenly balanced. There's a fine line between winning and losing. And I think Bills fans and NFL fans in general would be wise to remind themselves of that as the season begins.
A lot of people are picking Josh Allen as their preseason MVP. How is this kid with the incredible, I'll use the word again because it applies, ascension in the last couple of years, at least statistically, how has he been able to stay so grounded, so cool, so calm, so collected, such a terrific leader, and have so much fun doing what he's doing? How has he been able to maintain that, and how can he going forward?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question for Josh. I met him and know him a little bit because of COVID. I haven't talked to him much in recent years, but look, from what I know of him, there's a couple of things about him. Number one, he's very level-headed. Comes from a good family and got his head on his shoulders. But number two, he's just a hard worker. And I keep reading about what a turnaround season that was for Josh Allen last year, and I'm thinking, no, he got better every year. His rookie year, he was pretty good, really physically talented, but he got better the next year. And then he got better last year from year two. And if he follows that pattern, it's almost hard to imagine, but he could even be better this year, right? I heard his quarterback guru, Jordan Palmer, say not long ago, I don't think he has a ceiling. He hasn't hit it yet. I don't know where his ceiling is. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy works with him every day. If he hasn't hit his ceiling, and if Palmer can't even identify if he has a ceiling, whew,
Right.
But I think for him, and I'm not speaking for him, but to me, I think it's his hard work, off season, in season, his attention to detail, his willingness to lead and do the right thing to be a leader. That's what makes him tick, I think. And that's what makes him such an important and valuable piece of the current Buffalo Bills.
So, of course, the most important question in regards to you and Josh Allen is, does he have a Murph handshake?
Well, I don't know what you mean.
Well, he's got like a handshake or a celebratory handshake with every different player, right? So there's got to be a Murph one, right?
I've seen him at practice, but I haven't talked to Josh face to face since COVID began. I mean, that's a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
At least. No, the answer is no. If he does have one, he's hiding it from me.
He's probably still working on it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the team. Obviously goes to the championship game last year, lose to Kansas City. We saw what Tampa did to Kansas City and how Kansas City was susceptible to a pass rush, which the Bills obviously didn't have much of last year. They go out in the draft, obviously, and they get Russo, they get Basham, Epinesa, we think going to be better. Star Latulele comes back. I mean, talk about knowing who you have to beat and how to beat them in the offseason, right?
Yeah, and earlier in our talk, I mentioned how important McDermott has been, but equally almost important has been Brandon Beane. I mean, and the great thing about Brandon is he will tell you exactly what he's thinking, exactly what the team needs, exactly what he's trying to do, and he has gone out and done it now again, right? They said at the end of last year, he said, pass rush was the issue, and it clearly was. The difference between what the Bills were unable to do in the championship game 2 weeks later, the Bucs kind of showed the Bills, here's what you missed, here's what you didn't have. And they're absolutely right. And the Bills got the message and they went out and addressed it with 2 early draft picks on the pass rush, Epinesa from last year. You're right. I mean, and that's the great thing about Brandon Beane. I'm not saying he's not, I think he is prideful of what he does, but he's not afraid to tell you where he needs to be better. And he goes out and addresses what he needs to do. I mean, look at the receiving core they have right now compared to, 3 years ago when Beane first got started. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were kind of hoping that, maybe Foster can play, maybe Duke Williams can help. Those guys are gone, released by the Bills,
Not in the league.
Right.
Right.
I mean, guys, the Bills were kind of leaning on as important pieces of the receiving core in the recent history, like 3-4 years ago, are gone, and they have arguably one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. So I really appreciate that about Brandon Beane, and he and his staff, Joe Shane and the others are so much in sync with what the coaching staff needs and wants. And it's really fun to see. It's really good to see.
Okay. So you mentioned Baker and Burrow, and my gosh, the crop of young, really good quarterbacks just continues to evolve. So let's get in particular to the division and talk about Mac Jones and Tua and Zach Wilson and talk about, of those 3 guys and those 3 teams, which do you feel would be, the most dangerous to the Bills?
Yeah. it probably is not smart to say, but would it be all right to say I'm not worried about any of them? Because I'm not this year. Now, in the future, yeah, they're all going to be decent. I mean, you know, I thought Sam Darnold was a really good player coming into the league, and the Jets mishandled him so badly. So what makes you think the Jets won't do that again with another rookie first round quarterback, right? They could. The fact that, and again, Cam was so bad last year that it shouldn't shock anybody, but the Patriots parted ways with a former NFL MVP to get to Mac Jones. There must be something there. And I haven't seen him at all in preseason. I've watched him in college, obviously, but there's got to be something there. Ready to take off and start, excelling this year? Probably not. But he'll get on the job experience for sure. Tua is interesting. I don't think he was that strong last year, but the Dolphins appear sold on him. I'm not a big Dolphins believer. I think they've got sort of a dysfunctional group there and a dysfunctional team ethos or something. I'm not sure, but like I said, and I may end up eating these words, but none of those three scare me that much, right? I think the Bills for this year at least are far and away the best team in the AFC East, and they should prove that if things go according to plan this year.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't hear too many people mention the Bills like they are mentioning Tampa Bay in terms of Tampa Bay getting all their entire team back. I mean, the Bills virtually did that too. I mean,
Yes.
most of their team is back, and if not better, through the draft and free agency, right?
Yeah. So why wouldn't? Yeah, I agree, and that's fine. I don't care what national people say about the Bills, right? They'll say the right thing when the Bills earn it. But yeah, the Bills, virtually everybody is back. A flip of Emmanuel Sanders for John Brown. I was a big John Brown fan. I think he brought a lot, but he was kind of banged up and couldn't really play. They couldn't count on him to play every week. So we'll see what Sanders has. But other than that, they added pass rush? We talked about that group. I'm looking at the roster now. I don't see. I mean, it's virtually same crew, right?
Yeah.
The same crew.
Yep.
A little bit better, but the same crew for the most part. I think, Motor Singletary looks better through 3 preseason games. He looks leaner and quicker, and maybe a different style runner than he was, especially last year.
The only maybe significant difference, Murph, might be Andre Roberts, right? I mean, he was really explosive a year ago in the return game.
Yep. Yeah, and I look for Isaiah McKenzie to be good at that position. Maybe not, Pro Bowl good, but he's good. And I think that's a loss. I mean, and by the way, there's another reason why the Bills have to win the Super Bowl or get the Super Bowl now. Josh Allen's cap hit is coming in 2 years, right? Not this year, not next year, but the year after. And as hard as it was to lose Andre Roberts, they'll have some. You can work the best you can, work the best magic you can, but you're going to lose players when Josh Allen's cap hit really takes place in 2 years. So now is the time to win for the Bills.
It's in staying on special teams. I found this really interesting because they just announced the captains, and 3 of the captains are special teams guys. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they like all 3 of them, obviously. Reed Ferguson, I think, brings a lot. Tywan Jones, they're looking for him to be an important contributor. I think Kumaro has a lot to contribute on, chasing down kicks and punts. But yeah, I mean, I think they want to. The captains, I'm not sure. I think McDermott has a player vote, and then he picks who he wants anyway. You know what I mean? And the player, I do. I don't know how they did it this year, but I think in years past, that's what he did. Like, oh, I like this guy better than this guy, so I'm picking him. So.
All right, last thing, or 2 last things, but before we get to the final thing, you mentioned there's going to be bumps in the road. Where do you think those bumps lie?
Well, I mean, injuries is number one. I'll get to the schedule in a moment, but you can't predict who's going to get hurt, how long they'll be out, and what that injury might mean, right? You just can't. And the Bills dodged the bullet with injuries last year and basically the last couple of years, and that doesn't go on forever. I think there has to be some sort of acknowledgement that the training staff does a great job of preventing and working against injuries, but you can't go on forever. And as far as the schedule, let me look at it. There is that stretch that starts mid or October 10th at Kansas City, at Tennessee, and Miami at home. I mean, there's a couple of games there. I mean, at Kansas City and at Tennessee are 2 tough games against 2 legitimate AFC contenders. That'll be tough. So those are the potential bumps in the road, I think. But the most important, and I'll be honest, COVID, I think, is a potential to disrupt this impending great season. I mean, the wrong players have close contact, even close contact, don't even get sick. That can impact the season. We saw it just a couple of weeks ago in preseason. So
Yep.
They tried to button it up. I know McDermott tried to button it up, make sure everybody's vaccinated. Did not succeed, at least to date. And I hope I'm wrong, but COVID has the potential to really disrupt a potential Super Bowl season for the Bills.
Well, I got to say, and that was pretty remarkable that how they dealt with it a year ago, having to
Yeah.
have their schedule really wrecked by the other teams in the league and their COVID issues, right? I mean, credit to McDermott and his staff for having this team ready and being flexible enough to
Yeah.
play when they had to a year ago. That was crazy.
And what hurts, I guess, what's troubling is that there was no vaccine a year ago. Now there is a solution now, not foolproof, but a solution to minimize the damage, and they're not fully vaccinated. That it's troubling to me. Probably not a popular thing to say, but it's troubling.
What are you thinking? 13 wins? More?
Yeah, 13 or 14. Yeah,
Okay.
13 or 14 in that range, which is amazing. 17 game schedule. I guess I'm on record. I mean, it doesn't matter. Who knows, right? I picked 9 wins for years and they go out and win 3 or 4. What do I do? But I think they're the same group as last year. The schedule is a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but a little more manageable than a year ago. I think 13 to 14 wins is kind of the target for me. And that's an amazing schedule. If you lose just 3 games, and as I talked about earlier, the competitive nature of the NFL, that is incredible to get through a season.
I don't know if this is a hard question or not for you because you've worked with and covered so many of them. Who's your favorite Bills player?
That's a hard question for me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many good guys.
Sure.
I mean, I go back. I mean, I go back to the 80s, and Fred Smirlis and Jim Haslett were favorites of mine. And I always enjoyed Henry Jones, first round pick from Illinois, right? Safety. I thought he was smart and great and a great teammate. There was a lot, Kelso was great, and I got to know him a little bit when we worked on the radio for so long. Ryan Fitzpatrick remains one of my favorites. There's just a million good guys. The good guys definitely outnumber the bad guys.
For sure.
Lucky.
And then lastly, Murph, what is the one thing? Is there one thing that you've had with you every single game you've been in a Bills radio booth that you absolutely have to have, whether it's superstitious or not?
I can't think of one. I mean, I was thinking the other night how I used to be more superstitious than I am now. The more I do it, the less superstitious. I used to, if the Bills are going good, I would wash them, but I would wear essentially the same boxer briefs to every game.
Okay.
Washed, yes. But I don't even do that. I don't even bother, because after a while you realize, hey, what I do doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter as far as wins and losses. So the one thing I've had, I don't know. I don't have any good luck charm or anything like that I can think of. Pretty boring.
Yeah, just whatever. A Sharpie, a highlighter. I don't know. Whatever.
I got to have a lot of pens, and I got the right kind of pens.
It
drives me nuts if I don't have good pens. And what really drives me nuts if somebody reaches over and grabs my pen in the middle of the game. I'm ready to punch him.
And I've watched you note take during a game, and you are like, I learned from you, writing down yard lines is so important. You write down every yard line. That way you can add up, however long or short the play is, if there's a loss or a gain. And that's a good way to keep track, because sometimes the scoreboard's wrong. And I learned that from you.
Sometimes I do that too much, I think, and take my eye off the game. And I have to fight. I want to keep a record where drives start, where they end, how long the drive was, how long it, time-wise. But that's not really the most important thing I can do for the radio audience. But I still do it more than I probably should.
What's your typical pregame meal, Murph?
Oh, man. I mean, I try not to eat much, to be honest with you. I try to eat healthy if I can. I don't know. Shredded wheat, skim milk, fruit,
Awesome.
Coffee. I try not to eat much. I'd make up for it after the game.
So you don't carb up like Kelso would always tell you? You got to carb up. Carb load, Murph.
No, I am well past the carb up target audience, believe me. I got to carb down.
Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this. I love you to death. You've been so great to me over the years, and it was so nice of you to do this. And obviously, we're going to be listening and watching. I know you're doing some TV, right? Still?
Yeah, I'm doing stuff. I got an email while we're doing this. I do a Monday night show for Channel 7, Matt Beauvais and Joe B. And I every Monday night at 7 o'clock. We start next week. It's the day after the game. Then we do a later in the week show, but Monday night's the big night, 7 o'clock. We talk about it. It's called The Point After on Channel 7, Monday nights at 7.
Very cool.
Good. I do a podcast too. Can I plug my podcast?
Yeah, of course.
Sullivan's Pro Football Kickoff with John Murphy. It's with Apple, iTunes, and podcasts and stuff. Last week we had Cynthia Freeland on from NFL Network. She's great, and it's a combination of Bills talk and beer talk, and the two they go together in some respects, I think.
Well, I like both. So if you ever,
Exactly.
if your list, if you go through like 9, 11 people and they're whatever, ring me up. More than happy to do it. All right.
All right. Thanks.
Murph, I love you. Thank you again for doing this. Good luck this season. We'll be listening and watching, man.
Thanks, Bo. I appreciate it.